Well, first I thought we'd start with a little history of crafting survival, just so we're coming at this at the right angle. And I think it all started with Minecraft, right? Like that came
Hmm.
out late 2000s and just exploded. But then shortly after it, like there in the early 2010s, there were a ton of these games, these crafting survival games. This was about the time that early access was becoming popular. So people could make these games themselves, get them out there, and like that really wasn't possible before. So I feel like crafting survival really rode on the back of the early access train that we saw
Totally.
back then.
Yep.
But the problem with that was that most of these games were just janky, unfinished projects. They were just not well made. They were still fun, but just not well made. I mean, they had bad graphics, the mechanics were buggy, and they just had really bad hitboxes. And a couple of these that come to mind, like the early ones that I played, were Rust, The Forest, even DayZ, I guess you could consider under that. But despite all that, these remained very popular games. Like people just flocked to these. It was a real big craze. And I think that was because you had the freedom to do whatever you wanted in these games. You could just write your own story in a game. And that really went against everything we were used to in gaming up until that point. Like it just was, every game was very scripted, planned events. Everybody had the same experience for the most part. I mean, there were some that kind of broke the mold, but for the most part, like we had never seen something like this where you just had like this complete freedom to do whatever you want. And it was also a new type of multiplayer. Like you could group up with people just ad hoc. Like you just find some people and, hey, do you want to group up? And you would form these very flimsy alliances. You didn't know if you could trust them. There was nothing in the game that said, nope, you're on the same team. Now, there's no friendly fire. You can't hurt them. They can't hurt you. It was like, no, anything could happen here. And that kind of just blew people's mind. It was almost like a social experiment, if you
Yeah.
will. And I think
Totally.
that's what really drew people
The
to
best
crafting survival.
the best clips of DayZ are exactly that. It's like two people in an alleyway. They're like, "Hey, you want to be friends?" And then like 10 minutes later, guy A shoots guy B in the face like, "Sorry, dude, I wanted those bandages."
hmm
It's
Yeah.
like, no.
Yeah. Things could just flip on a dime like that. Friends become enemies. Yeah. It was really cool. I mean, I'll be honest, like I had some good times in these and everybody had a story, right? Like everybody would tell you, I was playing DayZ and then like I met up with these guys and then we were friends and then this happened and we went over here and we ran into these other guys, but then I joined up with them and betrayed the team. Like everybody had a story like that and they told it as if they were just walking down the street and something happened to them in real life. And
Yeah.
like that just didn't happen in games before. So crafting survival gave that to us, which was cool. But along with it, there were a lot of problems with this genre, and I know I am like everybody knows if you listen to the podcast, this is probably one of my least favorite genres. So I guess that's why I'm in charge of this section that we're starting off with, talking about all the problems. So the first one for me is it just feels like a lot of busy work. You got to run around, collect resources, organize your inventory, even the base building. Like there's just a lot of busy work to these games, and it can feel a little grindy, especially when these gameplay loops become repetitive. You end up just having to do the same thing over and over again, and of course that's going to lose its excitement. There's also things that come along with these games inevitably, like hunger and thirst mechanics, and it's like not only it kind of drags you down a little bit. Like it's like I want to go out, have fun, fight people and stuff, but it's like, oh, got to eat a sandwich. I'm going to be hungry. Can't go fight zombies on an empty stomach.
No, you need to equip
so-
your still suit, Bobby, but we'll get to that in a bit. We'll get to what
Okay.
Ken's doing. Yeah.
And one game that I did not play, but I feel like took this to an extreme was Scum. And I think that game's still out there. I think they're still updating it. I think they even were advertising it recently at one of these gaming events that we had recently. But there were games that took that whole survival thing to the extreme. Like you could get sunburnt and stuff. It was just ridiculous. But yeah, I was not a fan of that.
Bring your SPF. If you picked the light colored skin tone on character creation, you need to apply sunscreen every 20
minutes. SPF 30 or above. Yeah.
Well, you do touch on something really good, though. Like, a lot of times there's a spectrum in terms of the survival aspect of these crafting survivals. Some of them err more on the side of, you just need to eat and that's it, and your energy levels. And then some of them get really into the weeds and get really nitpicky and like really deep with it. I do think Dune's one of them, but you're right, Scum and like some of these other ones they're hardcore. They're like the Tarkov of survival. Exactly. Yeah. And so it's kind of, but I don't know. How is that any different than like Dark Souls with the constantly dying and the different roguelikes and things like that? I mean, it's an element of difficulty for sure in survivals is the survival part.
Yeah. Yeah. And, a lot of this is going to be just me and my opinion and like what I look for in games. So it's not like it's objectively bad, although some of it is. Another problem we saw like early on, I feel like this got better, but a lot of the games became the same. They had these predictable progression paths. And I always talk about this as the tree chopping cycle. Like you start the game, they throw you on a beach somewhere, you go punch a tree to get wood, then you use that wood to craft an axe to chop more wood. And then with that wood, you make like a house so you can store the wood that you chopped. And it's just like this endless cycle. So like, that I hate tree chopping. Like anytime I see that in a game, I'm just like, oh God, I know where this is going. One of the bigger issues that I think the games have, at least for me, and this is going to be depending on the person here, there's no clear objectives. This changed in later titles. So Subnautica, even Phoning Home, which was a single player one, they started adding story and like narrative progression, kind of like quests, I guess. And it was leading up to something and you could actually complete and finish the game. And I loved Subnautica. Like that was actually one of the crafting survival games that I really, really got into. But it's a trade-off. I mean, you give people the complete freedom to do whatever they want, but then you take away that narrative progression or like the point of the game, because really in your traditional crafting survival, your whole motivation is just don't die. And it's like, I mean, I could stand there and do that. I mean, I guess I got to need a sandwich and drink some water, but like it kind of robs you of the motivation that games typically provide you to move forward. So it doesn't work on every player. Some people are just fine with that. There's also an issue with solo play.
With losers with no friends. Sorry, if you're out there. That's what Bobby thinks, not me. I'm paraphrasing.
Well, also, if you don't have an internet connection,
right.
If you live in a part of the world where your internet isn't great or doesn't exist, then it becomes difficult too. Like you have to play this game online and you have to play it with a lot of people. Otherwise, it's just not going to be the same and it's not going to be fun. So for people who prefer solo play, it's very difficult. And also, if you're just not a very communicative player, like if you don't like talking on mic, like it severely detracts from the gameplay experience. So it does kind of limit itself in that way, although that does not seem to have hurt its popularity there. But the biggest problem is the time sink for me. These games take a long time. If you look at people, I know Amanda loves Ark. If you look at the hours played on her Steam profile, I'm guessing 900,000. Okay, we'll get a reading on that. We'll give her a minute to look that up.
Yeah, I got you. It's 804 hours.
804.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the kind of time that you can expect to like invest in one of these games if you get really into it. But the thing is, it's fine if you spend a ton of time playing games. That's no problem. But the thing is, most of that time is long stints of boring, not doing anything, building up to something. And then you have these like moments that are just really exciting, like where something happens. And then that's the story you go and tell your friends about, like, something cool that happened to you in the game. But like, there's a lot of lead up to that. And there's a lot of just like hanging out and not doing a whole lot, which can have its own social aspect. But really, there's a lot of dead time in the game, and that's difficult for me. I kind of like, if I play a game, I want to get right into it and get into the action. I think some games have gotten better at that. What was Enshrouded, I believe, was the name of the game that we played recently. That one got into the action pretty quickly too. So I feel like they're kind of aware of that issue when they develop these games now, and they speed it up a little bit. But what can also happen with this is, like, you've got different people with different amounts of free time. So if you're playing with your friends, you'll get out of sync. And we've probably all experienced this, where one person works from home or something, and they just like plow through.
Called out. Someone we won't name. Some people who work from home.
Not gonna name
He's
names.
grinding Dune Awakening right now.
Yeah, literally on the podcast, which I believe somebody has done when what was that Amazon MMO that came out?
Oh yeah, New World.
New World.
Yeah. Yeah, it's happened, folks.
Saw the reflection in the glasses. Did giveaway. That was so funny. Okay, yeah.
But somebody with a lot of extra free time will grind through the content, and then you come home from work and you're like, all right, I'm ready to play. Oh my God, you've already like built this giant base, and like we've progressed like through all this, which I mean is cool, but like I missed out on all that content. So, you can get out of sync with the people that you're playing with. And also if you're playing against people, pretty much the person with the most time wins, right? So the time thing is probably my biggest sticking point with crafting survival.